is condemning the assassination of Fernando Villavicencio and vowing U.S. assistance in the investigation. Suspects could include drug cartels, which have seen their clout grow in Ecuador in recent years.
Ecuador's president blames organized crime trying to sabotage the electoral process. The election is still scheduled for August 20th. Here in the U.S.
Hi, I'm Montero, and this is what I carry in my tabby.
A big merger in the fashion world. Tapestry, which owns Coach, has struck an $8.5 billion deal to buy the parent company of Michael Kors, Versace, and Jimmy Choo. It's aimed at better competing with European powerhouses like LVMH. Hollywood strikes are delaying an annual TV awards show.
This is the 74th Emmy.
The 75th Emmys, which were set to take place September 18th, are being postponed until Martin Luther King Day. That's January 15th. Union rules forbid striking writers from participating in the telecast, and actors cannot accept trophies on national TV. The Dow's up 403 points. This is CBS News.
Hire with minimal effort and max speed with Indeed. Their hiring solution platform helps you attract, interview, and hire candidates efficiently. Visit Indeed.com/credit.
With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. An $11 million land purchase in Oconomowoc has been completed, leading the way for a new housing and apartment project. The effort covers 236 acres west of Summit Avenue and will consist of 352 townhomes, duplexes, and single-family home lots. Eventually, an additional 270 apartments will go up on that site. The mother of the Wisconsin sailor accused of selling secrets to China encouraged her son to spy. That's according to information brought forward in a hearing yesterday for Jin Shou Wei. Prosecutors allege that Wei, born in China, sold sensitive information about his ship and U.S. military capabilities. They also assert that his mother encouraged him to continue selling secrets, potentially aiming for a future job with the Chinese government. Wei graduated from Delavan High School. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Hi, we're the Goo Goo Dolls. We're fortunate that our daughters have what they need to grow and learn. But that isn't the case for nearly 13 million kids in the U.S. that struggle with hunger.
Childhood hunger is a heartbreaking reality that Feeding America is working to change. Each year, the Feeding America network of food banks rescues billions of pounds of good food that would have gone to waste and provides it to families and children in need.
You can help kids in need in your community by visiting feedingamerica.org.
Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Ready for our little forest adventure?
Yes!
So much waiting for me. Yeah, I wanna go outside. I wanna be.
We're here.
Whoa, that was fast.
There's a forest closer than you think. Find a park or forest near you and music inspired by nature. DiscoverTheForest.org. Brought to you by USDA Forest Service and the Ad Council.
My name is Teresa Barber. I was in the United States Navy and I served overseas in the Middle East and Africa. Early on in my career, I had a commander that taught our suicide prevention training, and the very next day he took his own life. 90% of suicide attempts involving a gun are fatal. My way of continuing my service is to help protect my community by being a responsible gun owner and by storing firearms safely. Store all your guns securely. Help stop suicide.
Brought to you by End Family Fire and the Ad Council.
You are never far away from your favorite radio station. We're always streaming on TuneIn and the Civic Media app. And if you missed your favorite show or game, listen to a podcast.
What if I just, instead of giving out the talk and text line, just started giving up Robin Voss's number all the time?
I saw it go.
844-96 party. What is it?
I saw it go.
Write it down. 608-237-9163. Call now.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin!
What? Oh, what? do young conservative voters want? 844-967-2789. And I am fully aware that we may not be able to answer this. That today, considering I don't know how many young conservatives listen to this show.
That's a good point.
And if they do, they may not be listening right now because they're at work. But it is a question that Republicans themselves are trying to figure out and answer, not only just in Wisconsin, but I think nationwide. And I bring this up today because there was a profile in the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel by Tyler Katzenberger, who is Gen Z. He is a intern with Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel this year. He was a political intern with Cap Times last year. I got to meet him last year. He's wonderful. But he did a kind of it's a little bit of a profile on Brian Schimming and the chairman of the Wisconsin GOP, and a little bit he interviews some young Republicans and just kind of points out the discrepancy that is happening with Republicans' attempt to have the same success with young people that Democrats have had both in the last midterms and in Wisconsin in the Supreme Court race in April. And, I want to try to talk about this topic genuinely, but I don't know. It's funny because I feel like while many people listening right now might consider me young at 37, which I am, I'm also not 21, and I don't know a lot of 21-year-olds.
Which kind of surprises me.
Why does that surprise
Just because you know such a wide range of people. You really do.
I do. Yeah, I think like of my friends, it bottoms out at like maybe late 20s.
Yeah.
20 when you're 37 and you try to talk to a 21-year-old, you may feel young, and then you talk to someone who's like that young and you're like, oh man, I'm old.
I'm old, yeah, right. Priorities a little bit different.
And so it's interesting, and it's funny because this is politics, but it's also what advertisers are constantly trying to figure out too.
It's all
right?
about demographics,
right?
For
And
sure.
just what does Gen Z want? What do they respond to? And at least with politics, there's some polling that can be done versus the nebulousness. Is that a word?
Nebulous is a word.
Nebulousness as a noun?
We'll look it up.
Nebulous, because nebulous is an adjective.
Yes.
The noun of whatever nebulous is. Of what do Gen Z respond to? One thing they certainly responded to was the Grimace milkshake thing that an advertising came out. Did you not hear about this?
No.
So it was a trend that was going on social media when Grimace from McDonald's, I think it was his birthday or something, and so McDonald's introduced a purple milkshake, and it started taking over TikTok of doing this like Grimace challenge where basically you'd order a milkshake and then people were coming up with these extravagant, like paranormal ways that they died from drinking the milkshake. And it was just like elaborate videos that people were making. And there was thousands of them. And lo and behold, that wasn't just like an organic thing that started. An advertising company worked with McDonald's and planted that.
Very smart.
And that's like one of the few advertising campaigns because Gen Z is just weird. Like they like weird things. They're super smart. They're super there's like a bunch of existential things that they like. They're very like anti things that are cringe to them. And for some reason that took hold. But in general, advertising has fallen very flat for that generation. And I think similarly, it's interesting to think about what is the generational gap that's happening more distinctly with Republicans than Democrats when it comes to reaching like 18 to 25-year-olds. And so I would love to hear from you, especially if you have young people in your life. Like, what are the things that they care about? 844-967-2789. And because I read this Journal Sentinel article, and while they don't really point to any polling of young people, they kind of just take a couple anecdotes of Republican leaders, like young leaders at Madison or Milwaukee. And like the two they kind of come up with are crime and inflation.
Inflation.
And inflation, because the thing is, money, I mean, being a broke college student, like that makes sense to me to a certain extent of like things are expensive. Crime feels less on the money. And this all kind of like this article and some of the answers that were given kind of just reminded me of like top down, like stretching the argument. Like these are the issues as Republicans we want to focus on. So we're like finding the young people who also agree with that versus actually listening to young people. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And because of course you're always going to find someone or a handful of someones who are like, yeah, that's a big deal. But it reminded me of last August during the gubernatorial primary debate with Rebecca Clayfish and Tim Michaels and Tim, who's the other Tim? Tim Time.
Yeah.
And Rebecca Clayfish stood on that stage, who has 2 young daughters, and was like, I really think young people care about income taxes. I was like, I don't think so. I think they're more excited about following the fun city or the fun job than how much they're paying. Like that's how they're choosing where they're going to live. I think you're just wish casting a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
So I would love to hear from you if you have an idea, if you've talked to young people. What is the gap? What is the gap between younger and older Republican voters? Because there are young conservatives.
Certainly.
Turning Points USA claims that they have like 1,300 chapters across high schools and colleges, and there are young Republicans, and so it's not like oh they just don't. But it's just they're not motivating them to vote. And reading this article is like, I still don't think you get it. Even though you say it's important to you, like it doesn't feel like you're listening. But I could be totally wrong. 844-967-2789.
Jack from Merrimack. Good morning, Jack. What do you want to say?
Good morning. Well, my son just graduated this spring from UW Eau Claire. And while he tends to be progressive, a bit less than I, more towards his mother's side. But in any case, he had a girlfriend who was from a very, very conservative family up in the farming country around the UW. And one of the things that I heard on occasion was that she was concerned about the cost of education.
Mm-hmm.
She was going to school at Eau Claire too, and it cost $10,000 a year for schooling at a public university. Excuse me, that's like $40,000 or $50,000 that you have to pay before you even can look for a job. Another thing that I know that she was concerned about, being from a farming area, is the environment.
Yeah.
And she does know about global warming, and was quite concerned about that. But Republicans are going to have a heck of a time recruiting significant numbers of young voters if they do things like, for instance, cut funding to education, keep people who are obviously anti-environment on the DNR board, like this guy Prem was for 2 additional years. They're going to have trouble recruiting young people if they throw barriers to voting, like, for instance, not being able to use a student ID or moving voting precincts away from campuses. I mean, this is a problem, and this has been one of their big thrusts. I can't remember who stated it, but one of the upper level Republicans in Wisconsin stated something like, we've got to do something to keep these college students from voting. It's a terrible thing. They can get out of bed on a Tuesday morning, vote, turn around and go back to bed.
That was Cleta
Mitchell. Yeah.
Yep, Cleta Mitchell. Yeah, we don't want to make it easy for those kids, Jack.
Thanks so much for the call, Jack. And it's interesting the anecdote that he just gave of his son's girlfriend, because in the attempt to try to talk about this in a genuine way this morning and not just like make fun of it, I was trying to Google and find what I could find about this topic. And it's interesting. In some of the articles, I think there was a couple from NPR, there was a couple from Pew Research that like that he actually hit the nail on the head. It is the economy, because it's struggling. Like more and more Gen Z and millennials are struggling to keep their head above water.
Yep.
So it's affordable housing, both rent and am I ever going to be able to buy a house? It's the fact that there is no accountability to the universities just to continue to get more and more expensive. And it also is the environment. Even young conservatives are seeing the writing on the wall,
Yes.
and that there is not that saying there's a generational gap between, at least what I'm reading. Again, this is I can't speak because that is not my community, but at least what I read this morning is exactly that there is a lot of young conservatives, including people who spoke on panels at CPAC.
Oh, wow.
Talking about the environment, which obviously was very different than what was happening on the main stage.
Oh, sure.
And some of the other stuff there was a Vanity Fair article saying the conservative youth movement is still going strong, except at the polls. And one of the things that they also mentioned in that one is there's a huge generational divide between young and old conservatives in religion and how religious they are. And so the fact that there is such a doubling down on, Christian nationalism, while there are, I think, more than a third of Generation Z currently in their late teens and early 20s in America identify as religiously unaffiliated. And some of those are obviously young conservatives. And so we're going to keep this going after the break. But if you have thoughts on what do young conservatives want, especially young conservative voters, we'd love to hear from you. 844-967-2789. We'll be right back.
The kids are all right. The kids are all right.
A perfect day starts with perfect breakfast. Start your day with Brunch It Up. Our experts are serving up the ultimate brunch experience. Our menu is loaded with inventive dishes from chicken and waffles to cinnamon roll pancakes. Try unique cocktails like Brunch Bloody Mary with house-infused vodka. Come brunch it up over bottomless mimosas or a midday pick-me-up. Or with the whole family for an unforgettable Sunday brunch. Brunch It Up in Milwaukee, Brookfield, or Cedarburg from 7 to 3 on weekdays and 8 to 3 on weekends. Let's brunch it up.
It's summertime in Wisconsin, and whatever the weather, it will impact you and your plans.
Should I water the garden? Will our event be rained out? Count on your local Civic Media radio station for in-depth details and the most up-to-date forecast.
Temperatures are rising into the mid and upper 70s under sunny skies.
It's your weather and more for your part of Wisconsin.
On your local Civic Media radio station and streaming on the Civic Media app.
It's so hot. Wait, now it's going to rain? It is summer in Wisconsin.
As much as we love it, we love to hate it too. Find a forecast you can count on along with the in-depth details you need, only from the Civic Media weather team.
These extended conditions have led us into a flash drought. Sitting in these above average temperatures with minimal rain has swiftly altered the local climate.
Your weather and more for your part of Wisconsin.
On your local Civic Media radio station and streaming on the Civic Media app.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Highs level off around 82 this afternoon under mainly sunny skies. Northwest winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Lows around 63. Tonight, mainly cloudy skies. Chance for scattered thunderstorms. Tomorrow, daytime highs approaching 82. Cloudy skies with a few peaks of sun. Dry with seasonal temps Saturday and Sunday and highs in the low 80s. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Eric Height. Currently, it's 72.
My name is Shakespeare William. I own the feather quill. I am the writer most familiar to you.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I'm Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair, and we are talking about what young conservative voters want and how much Republicans are actually listening to them, considering, at least on their face, they're saying that We know that we need to appeal to young voters. We need to motivate young voters, especially as the last couple cycles have proven that the youth vote for Democrats are certainly turning out. And so I bring this up now because the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel wrote an article about how Brian Schimming, chairman of the Wisconsin GOP, is saying that this is a top priority for him. And yet, at least what was brought out from what that actually looks like in the article, I'm kind of calling BS on, as far as, is this actually you listening, or is this just you finding young people who agree with the things that you're already focused on, which is inflation and crime? But I could be wrong. 844-967-2789. And I'm asking because I know a lot of our listeners are probably not Gen Z conservatives.
True.
But would love to hear from you as far as the young people in your life that you talk to. Are they politically active at all? And if they are, what are the things that they say that they care about? 844-967-2789.
We got a couple of texts, John from the Falls. Hello, ladies. As the father of 2 boys, I can tell you there are 3 things they care about the most: climate change and having a planet that they can actually live on, gun violence after going through public school active shooter drills, their friends being treated equally regardless of race, gender, and sexuality. Republicans are actively working against all of these things, so I'm guessing that's the reason for the large gap.
Well, and it'd be interesting, John from the Falls, do your kids vote, are they more conservative or are they more progressive? Because I think that's also, I think everything you just listed makes sense as far as what I feel like when I follow like Gen Z for Change and a lot of the different grassroots groups that are focused on young progressives, but also like specifically, I'm interested in like what are the priorities of young conservatives and how does that differ? Because I don't know, maybe it doesn't. Maybe there's more overlap than people think there is as far as tolerance for different social issues. And not like I did in my hunt this morning. I also found a Rolling Stone article that talked about how Gen Z conservatives just wish people would stop saying woke.
Well, that's not going to happen.
And so it was young Republicans are begging party elders to stop saying woke. And they're like, it's so to the young Republicans in attendance, the vernacular feels a bit cringe.
Oh, it's cringy.
We don't really use woke as our term, says Evan Massey, a student at the Community College of Rhode Island. Chris Johnson, the managing director of Young Conservatives for Carbon Dividends, likens its use to how out of touch uncle might search for the words to describe a nephew at the Thanksgiving table. I think a lot of older folks use it as if but they don't really know what they're referring to. It's just like a catch-all colloquialism, and it's like, this is not a term that's reaching the youths.
The youths. Yeah, it's not cutting through. Sorry. 844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY. Dave from Mequon. Good morning, Dave.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call, for starters. Really quickly, in regards with what you're discussing here, I'm sure you're familiar with Charlie Kirk.
Yeah.
He's 29 years old. He's a huge ultra-conservative. He actually has a pretty wide following. Candace Owens, a little bit older, she's a black female conservative. And you have James O'Keefe. You have Ben Shapiro, who's Jewish, that has a lot of followers as well. What they're really focusing is on multiple issues. One, to try to take the equation of neutrality on a lot of different subjects. But the biggest thing is that people have choices without the government interfering on everything. And that seems to be a big consensus. Now, granted, I'm much older than these people, but in talking to like my nephew, who actually is in Michigan State, he is a conservative, which is surprising because I never thought that he would be a conservative.
Because he didn't get indoctrinated yet?
But the bigger thing is that there's been a big push I guess, they're talking about we have this trade, supply issue right now because we have a lot of people that are kind of downplayed blue collar jobs. It's frowned upon. And so, conservatives have been trying to say, hey, listen, you know what? There are other options other than just getting a 4-year degree in college. So they feel that the people, or at least conservatives, younger conservatives that do not go to college, they're trying to say, well, hey, listen, they want to start up their own business. They want to start up or do something completely different. And I think sometimes there's a gap because we're focusing on one thing. We've heard about with the sports, and obviously that's controversial. You have Moms for Liberty.
So I guess I need, because Dave, just because we're coming up against the break. So what, if you had to sum it up in like a couple words, what is it that you think young conservatives care about? Like, give me 2 issues.
We got a minute.
I think right now, national debt. They're very worried about that. I think everybody's worried about with the economic end of things. That's number one. And number 2, the whole issue with the sporting world right now at this point, that seems to be very talked about, that female sports in particular, they feel are being destroyed.
Interesting. If you let us know if you agree with Dave that you think that's what young conservatives care about the most.
Broadcasting to Waukesha at 101.1 FM. Broadcasting to Southeast Wisconsin at 540 AM. This is The Shaw, WAUK.
CBS News Brief. At least 36 people have died in wildfires sweeping the Hawaiian island of Maui, destroying the centuries-old town of Lahaina.
It looked as if the whole town was devastated. The whole town was decimated.
Southwest is adding flights to help people leave. Inflation edged up in July after 12 straight months of declines. CBS's Jill Schlesinger.
Food prices up 4.9% from a year ago and heavily weighted towards food away from home. Used car prices down by 5.6%.
Fed makes another decision on interest rates in September. In Ecuador, the president says he'll send soldiers into the streets to keep the peace amid protests over the assassination of a presidential candidate. CBS's Ed O'Keefe.
Villavicencio, who was one of 8 candidates running for president in the August 20th election, was known for speaking out against corruption and organized crime.
CBS News Brief. I'm Deborah Rodriguez.
Your hometown radio, refreshed, keeping you informed, entertained, and connected on the Civic Media Network, civicmedia.us.
With the news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles. A fatal overdose 2 years ago led to a recent Racine County arrest of a Milwaukee man and the discovery of over $350,000 in cash. Investigators say undercover operations revealed 37-year-old Brandon Price sold heroin mixed with fentanyl on one occasion and pure fentanyl on 2 others. A search of Price's Greendale apartment uncovered crack cocaine, powder cocaine, fentanyl, firearms, and the cash. The arrest was aided by Greenfield police. The leading contender might not compete in Milwaukee. Former President Donald Trump has yet to confirm his participation in the Milwaukee debate. Trump's campaign indicated a decision will likely be reached next week, with concerns over the pledge to back the eventual Republican nominee contributing to the delay. The debate is scheduled for August 23rd. With news on WAUK The Shaw, I'm Stuart J. Waddles.
Did you know the Wisconsin State Fair is 172 years old? It still celebrates the industries important to our state's history, like agriculture. But every year, new attractions and items are added. This year, there's more than 100 new foods to try. So what do you think topped the culinary list last year? Flamin' hot Cheetos, chicken on a stick, deep-fried old-fashioned? or Pinot Pretzel Popper Brat? The answer's coming up. The Wisconsin State Fair didn't start in its current home of West Allis. The first was in Janesville along the Rock River, then moved to different locations the next 40 years. The original cream puff has been around almost as long. Close to 400,000 are gobbled up every year. So which food was number one last year? It was the Pinot Pretzel Popper Brat. It came out on top. The State Fair is a true slice of Wisconsin, and it runs through August 13th. I'm Terry Barr for the Civic Media Radio Network.
If you care about animals or crops, you probably care how the weather could impact both.
It's summer in Wisconsin, and the success of your efforts often depends on knowing the forecast. Count on your local Civic Media weather team for all the information you need.
Crops' roots are also growing deeper in search for water, which is bad news because when rain finally falls, it will sit shallow and be absorbed in the top layers of the soil.
Your weather and more for your part of Wisconsin.
On your local Civic Media radio station and streaming on the app.
Miss our conversations on air? Join the discussion on our social media channels. Find Civic Media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. You can also find...
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I'm Kristen Bry. She is Jane Vadner, and we're trying to get thoughts on what do young conservatives voters want, what will motivate them to vote, and what is the gap that's been created between the Republican Party, what the Republican Party thinks older voters want versus younger voters, and if they can actually bridge that in time for the 2024 election. And I claim I can read as much as I can read, but this is certainly not a community I can speak for or I know many of. And I was trying to think. I was like, who can I even try to Benjamin, who he was a fellow at Institute for Reforming Government. Garbedian.
Yeah.
I texted him. I don't think he has not gotten back to me, but he's like, I think he's one of the few young
conservatives
because he just graduated from Carroll University.
Right.
But he's one of the only young conservatives that I know that I could be like, let's talk about it. And I'd be interested to see, maybe he'll follow up with me after.
That'd be great.
I can follow up with you all on what he tells me, because my instinct of our last caller, Dave from Mequon, saying that their two top issues are the trans bills and trans people playing in women's sports and the national debt being the two top issues, at least from everything that I read this morning in trying to prepare for this topic, neither of those came up.
That's not it.
The culture war stuff came up a little bit in the Rolling Stone article talking about how they would younger people would hope that they would stop saying woke because the word itself is cringe. But not that they're shying away from culture issues, and that there is in some groups, and we've seen this a little bit with the big survey they did it throughout the UW system of younger conservatives feeling like they get
dissed,
bullied,
looked down on.
Yeah, for having their opinions on certain social issues and yada yada when they're on college campuses. And so they touched on that, but it's like some of the ideas behind this like colloquialism that woke has become, even though no one can really define it, is certainly there with younger conservatives, but they just don't call it that. And but again, some of the things that came up was they're not as religious. They do care about the environment. They do care about how expensive everything has gotten. How do you like get a leg up in this world? They care about how expensive college is. And so, and a lot of those things, it's like, yeah, a lot of people care about those things.
Right.
So would love to hear from you. What do you think young conservative voters want? What have you heard from young people in your life? 844-967-2789.
Beverly from Richland Center. Good morning, Beverly. What do you think?
I think the Republicans have put themselves in a real hole. I taught college for many years. In the last few years that I taught, I noticed a real significant focus of students on social justice and you just treat people right. It was just pervasive among all of the students. And I talked to a young Gen Zer a couple of years ago because I suspected that a lot of this was coming from the anti-bullying training that they were getting in the elementary and high school. And this young lady said to me, she said, no. She said, that's not it. She said, it's our parents' fault. She said, they sat us down in front of the TV and we watched Mr. Rogers and the Sesame Street and a lot of these other programs that emphasize treating people decently and being nice and whatever. And so these kids have been imprinted with this social justice, be kind, be decent message. Good luck now trying to change that.
Well, and Beverly, it's so interesting because on the one thing in the article about wokeness at CPAC, there was someone who was on a panel that said, like, as a party, we need nicer rhetoric. But simultaneously, as all those people, those like superstars of the conservative movement right now, Ben Shapiro, Charlie Kirk, Candace Owens, like, I wouldn't describe these people as nice
at all.
And yet they have a fairly young following. So it'd be interesting. Like, I agree with you, but I also wonder how much that is still people who are like, if the young people you were talking to, were they also conservatives?
I came from an area that was very conservative.
Okay.
So
I guess that's true.
Of course, I don't know what their politics were, but this was, central Indiana. It was very red.
Interesting.
So it's hard to say. Plus, you've also with these young kids, they're still forming ideas, and so they're going to be influenced by some of this, rhetoric. But my guess is, since they've been imprinted with this decentness from their childhood, that may eventually come through.
Super interesting.
That's
Thanks
really
for the call,
interesting.
Beverly.
Yeah, thank you so much, Beverly. 844-967-2789 if you want to call and or text and weigh in on this. What do you think, or what have people in your life, young people in your life, told you that young conservatives want?
Yeah, it was interesting. There was actually a really well written op-ed for USA Today by a USA Today intern that was titled, "The GOP isn't interested in Gen Z. Republican Party has abandoned young conservatives like me." And he just kind of rails on the fact that it's a lot of the economy stuff of just how, like, he literally writes out, the Reagan agenda emptied out America.
Wow.
Globalization offshored millions of jobs, disseminating the well-paying, low education careers that allowed decades of easy access to homeownership and prosperity. My generation grew up surrounded by closed factories, shadows of once vibrant main streets, and, at least in Appalachia, an oppressive opioid crisis. And it's interesting. I mean, he ends on saying how much the importance of family should be like a central role of government, which I don't agree with. But it's interesting how much in reading, it's very well written, of what he has talked about as a young conservative, both fiscally and socially, that I was like, all right, right on, kid. Like, I agree with a lot of that. And so I'm actually really excited because next Wednesday, friend of the show, John Russell, who, speaking of Appalachia, that is where he lives in Ohio. We've had him on a couple different times.
He's
talking
terrific.
about the independent reporting he was doing on the Norfolk train derailment. But recently he went to a Trump rally and talked in like a very, and he is like a very proud mullet wearing leftist that like also is a bartender at like a Rust Belt working class bar. And so he's very accustomed to having these conversations. But it's interesting when you watch the video of the working class issues that come through, that it's like, no, we care about that too.
The economic issues.
The economic issues that it's like, no, both people on the left and the right, like as far as when it comes to like class stuff, are saying the same things. And so, yeah, so it's super interesting.
844-967-2789. From the 608, does Dave from Mech One realize that all the young conservatives he's describing are reading scripts written by the Koch brothers and other people? Well, and I as far as Ben Shapiro and Charlie Kirk, they're not young. I mean,
29 is still pretty young.
Ish, but they're not 18 to 22 or 23 or 24. Ben Shapiro's got to be in his mid-30s.
Yeah, he might even be 40.
Right?
And yeah. Well, and that's the other thing that I think is interesting is like, what is, like, we've joked about this before. I think we were talking about it last week with the fact that Scott Walker is the president of YAF instead of someone who is
young.
Like, even like, I mean, he's, I don't think he's quite a boomer. Is he Gen X probably?
Probably. What about one of his kids?
Yeah. Who were both into politics.
Right. Wouldn't that make more sense?
And so it's like, what? So it's like sometimes this like top down, and I get that you're like, oh, you want people who have like experience to run these big organizations. Cause I think that's like, you know, it's like a $40 million like operation.
Pays a pretty good salary too, I understand.
It does. But it's like versus the article you found this morning, Jane, about David Hogg, who was one of the survivors, the survivors, and he has started a new. It's not a PAC. It's kind of like Run for Something,
right?
A new organization that's going to help people under 35 run for federal seats, and people under 30 run for statewide seats, specifically in unchallenged open Democrat seats. And so in the same way when we've talked to She Should Run, Erin Los Cuatraro, in an organization that recruits women who have never run before to run for something that I think specifically works with candidates who are progressive. This is a new organization that is specific on not only just trying to get people to vote, but also getting young people to run for something. And so it'd be interesting to see how much of there is a difference, and I don't know how you measure this, when it comes to the activation of young people that is bottom up versus top down. And some of these Turning Points USA, some of these bigger organizations that are pretty top down. Like, I mean, they have local chapters, but as far as an organization, like it's an organization versus like Gen Z for Change is basically just a bunch of kids who like found each other online and started organizing.
Yes.
And how motivating and empowering that is to be running your own show versus being told this is what we're doing. So
844-967-2789, 844-96-PARTY if you want to check in. I just find it very indicative of how the Republicans kind of treat all of their constituents. It's like
we know best.
Well, yes, we know better than you, and we're going to stick our fingers in our ears and pretend we don't hear that you want legalized medical marijuana, that we don't want permitless concealed carry, you know, all of those things. They just don't want to hear those things. And so they're just going to say, yes, our young conservatives are really worried about inflation.
They're really worried about men playing with.
And yes, that's the top thing. You know, we're talking about a generation of kids who, and John from the Falls, I think, mentioned the active shooter drills.
Yeah.
I find it remarkable that one side is so concerned about drag queens traumatizing children and not assuming that decades of active shooter drills in your schools has not traumatized our children.
I know.
I don't understand that.
Or then that was why you played the Shakespeare song before, but that, you know, in the ongoing attempt to
ban everything,
reinvent education in Florida schools are now censoring Shakespeare to avoid sexual content. Because again,
for pity's sake,
so traumatizing.
Yes,
that's Shakespeare.
Well, I saw the movie Romeo and Juliet. Man, I've never gotten over it.
But yes, under the neglectful eye of Ron DeSantis, Florida's educational offerings have been looking increasingly bleak since the state adopted the Parental Rights in Education Act, also known as the Don't Say Gay law, which some people I know that listening would not like that we called it that. But now, along with the vilification of classroom lessons about queerness and gender identity, Florida school districts are turning their focus to anything housing sexual content, including AP psychology courses, and it appears the works of William Shakespeare. This is also the same state that banned being able to show the statue of David, correct?
Oh, yeah. Right.
According to the Tampa Bay Times, some Florida schools are planning only to use excerpts from Shakespeare's works rather than the full text of his plays to avoid content that's too sexual, a foul for the law. There's some raunchiness in Shakespeare because that's what sold tickets during his time. During his time, doesn't that still sell tickets?
Oh, give me a break.
But it's interesting because it's poetry, so you have to have a certain, like, Shakespeare's not explicit, right? Like, a lot of Shakespeare is reading in between the lines, and there is ton of innuendos.
Without
don't get
a
me
doubt,
wrong,
for sure.
But like, you gotta get what the innuendo is. It's not just like
it's not in your
and
face.
then she effed, and then this P went in this V.
And
all right. Well, when we come back, 3 headlines in a line. We missed it last week, so we'll see how Jane can do. You can play along at home. This is As Goes Wisconsin. We'll be right back.
If music be the food of love, play on. Et tu, Brute? Did you ever know? Forever and a day. From a Shakespeare show. Good riddance, fair play. Pure as the driven snow. High time, lie low. Pour out the Romeo, the nation's favorite.
The 2023 Wisconsin State Fair is here, packed with heart-pounding rides, mouth-watering treats, and electrifying entertainment. Indulge in deep-fried delights, explore captivating exhibits, and create memories that'll last a lifetime. On now through August 13th at State Fair Park in West Allis. Grab your tickets now at withstatefair.com. This message brought to you by Parallel Employment Group. For over 35 years, Parallel has been your partner in success. Make your career aspirations a reality. Visit parallelemployment.com today.
It doesn't hurt, feels good to help. And when you give blood, you provide a life-saving difference for others. The need doesn't take a summer break. So we have a challenge for you, started by Civic Media's Earl Ingram.
Congratulations to all those people and all of you who donate blood.
Take a selfie while giving blood, then post it along with hashtag Civic Pints. Give blood and you could get a prize too. Find challenge details and a donation center near you at civicmedia.us/giveblood. civicmedia.us/giveblood.
The Maggie Dawn Show.
Donald J. Trump has now been indicted for a 3rd time. The purpose of the conspiracy was to overturn the legitimate results of the 2020 presidential election by using knowingly false claims of election fraud. The defendant enlisted co-conspirators to assist him in his criminal efforts. Jim Trupis, Ron Johnson, they're coming for you. Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Jeffrey Clark, yeah, you as well.
Weeknights at 6 p.m. on your local Civic Media radio station and on the Civic Media app.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Mainly sunny skies this afternoon with highs around 82. Northwest winds 8 to 15 miles an hour. Mainly cloudy skies tonight. Lows dip down to about 63. Chance for scattered storms tomorrow. High temperatures reach up to 82. More clouds than sun. Dry with seasonal temperatures Saturday and Sunday and highs in the low 80s.
Right. She is Jane Matnair, and we are back to playing our fun weekly game of 3 headlines and a lie, where we go through 4 headlines. 3 of them are real, and Jane has to pick out which one is not real.
I am not feeling confident today. No.
Well, what makes you feel more confident versus other weeks?
Because some weeks I just feel like I've covered a lot more material, off the air and read a lot more things. And this has not been one of those weeks.
Not been one of those weeks?
No.
So you're not feeling confident when Luke Mathers is here tomorrow for our Civic Media crossover and you get to play a headline game again?
We'll see how I did not do well last week.
We didn't have it last week. So who did against Maggie?
Maggie.
2 weeks ago?
Yeah. Whatever.
I think we went off the rails a little bit during that episode. All right. Let's kick it off with number 1, our first headline. Italian man crushed to death by falling wheels of cheese.
Oh.
This could happen in Wisconsin.
What was it? Mozzarella?
I don't know.
Probably
It
not.
may not be real.
They don't make mozzarella in wheels, I don't think.
But yes, Italian man crushed to death by falling wheels of cheese.
That's tragic.
Number 2. A dog hit the pedal on a golf cart. No, a dog hit the pedal on a golf cart and ran over a 4-year-old who was uninjured.
I think that's true.
Okay.
We'll see what my other choices are.
Number 3. Driver injured after car crash into second floor Pennsylvania home.
I saw the picture.
Okay, so you know that one's real.
Yep.
So you've narrowed your choices. Meteorologists say fog can anger migrating birds and cause mid-flight fights.
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Let's go through. The meteorologists say fog can anger migrating birds and cause mid-flight fights.
All right.
All right. So all 4 again. Number 1, Italian man crushed to death by falling wheels of cheese. Number 2, a dog hit the pedal on a golf cart and ran over a 4-year-old who was uninjured. Number 3, driver injured after car crashed into second floor of Pennsylvania home. And number 4, meteorologists say fog can anger migrating birds and cause mid-flight fights.
Okay, that is the lie. No, I'm sorry. 3 headlines. Yeah, that is the lie.
That is the lie.
The fog and the birds and bird fights.
That is the lie.
It is?
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Good job.
Thank you.
So yes, indeed, a Italian man was crushed to death by falling wheels of cheese.
That's terrible.
Giacomo Ciparini? Sure. 74 died Sunday evening in his warehouse near Bergamo.
Oh.
The owner of a cheese factory in northern Italy has died after he was crushed when thousands of his cheese wheels fell on him. Woof.
I guess he died doing what he loved.
Yeah, a Parmesan hard-style cheese that is popular in Italy was in his warehouse near Bergamo. I don't know if I'm saying that right. On Sunday evening, tending to 15,000 cheese wheels that were aging. All of a sudden, a 30-foot high shelf holding the wheels, which weigh about 20 kilograms or about 44 pounds, gave way. That created a domino effect and sent the massive wheels flying and ultimately burying their maker.
That's terrible.
That's terrible. This is what don't work alone, people. I don't know if it would have made a difference if someone had been there. All right. Yes, indeed. A dog hit the pedal on a golf cart, ran over a 4-year-old who was uninjured.
That's amazing.
A fire crew's dog jumped on the pedal of a golf cart, which then struck a 4-year-old Michigan girl, leaving her with no visible injuries. I don't know why there was a random golf cart or why the
dog jumped in there.
Why the firefighters were there, but Bella, an arson dog, jumped down from the seat of a golf cart and landed on the accelerator pedal, sending the cart towards people attending a Friday night festival. So yeah,
at least it had
crisis averted.
Yes, that's good. That's good.
And then I also saw the picture for this one, and
this is crazy.
Whoa,
this was intentional.
So yeah, driver injured after car crashed into second floor of Pennsylvania home. So a driver was taken to the hospital after their car flew into a second floor. So imagine that. It's
a 2-story house.
And into the second floor in the Decatur Township on Sunday. And so upon arrival, the vehicle was found to have crashed into the second floor of the home, and the driver had been removed from the car. The driver was transported to Geisinger Lewistown Hospital. The driver was traveling at a rate of speed and veered off the road into a field. There was a change in elevation between the field and the house. Because of this and the high rate of speed, the vehicle became airborne before hitting the house. So it was intentional in that he veered off and was driving through the field, but it wasn't intentional that he tried to hit the house.
Oh, I see. And I thought it was like an ex-husband or something deciding to launch himself into his ex-wife's house.
No, I think it was going into the house was still an accident.
Oh, well.
I don't think that was like, this is how I'm going to get back at that bee. I may just end myself, but at least I'll wreck her house.
You never know. There's lots of crazy out there.
But yes, indeed. And then, no, apparently fog cannot anger migrating birds.
Well, I'm good. There's one good thing we don't have to worry about.
That is good. All right. Well, fun hour.
Yes. She's here.
She's here. She's here in person.
I didn't know we got to have her here.
Yes, we are now after a 2-week hiatus. She was traveling, then I was traveling. And so Dr. Kristen Lyerly is not only back on the show, she's in the studio today.
I'm excited.
And so we will be back at the top of the hour, after the top of the hour news, with public cervix announcement. And kicking off with just in time in my 7-week countdown, the FDA has approved the first treatment for postpartum depression.
That's great.
So we're going to talk about that. There's new headlines this week about Wegovy. I feel like every week there's a pros and cons list that comes out about Wegovy and Ozempic, and it may be great for you. It may be cause suicidal thoughts.
But you'll look great.
You also apparently might do more to actually save your life, in that it may stave off strokes and heart attacks, and so still up in the air. But and then at 11:30, Chris Strasner is here to talk about the great taste of the Midwest. One of the But we also proved that I'm not always nice.
But even when you're upset and even when you're ticked off, you still come from a place of compassion and love. Whereas I'm just old, bitter, and jaded.
Moving Wisconsin forward, one joke at a time. This is Kristen Bry with As Goes Wisconsin.
Yada, yada, yada.
Hello, Wisconsin! Hello, Wisconsin. Welcome to the 11 o'clock hour of As Goes Wisconsin on this Thursday, August 10th. And we are so excited to, after a 2-week break, to welcome back Dr. Kristen Lyerly for our recurring Thursday segment, Public Cervix Announcement, where we talk a lot of women's health, but health in general, things that popped up in the headlines that we wanted to get a doctor's opinion on. And we also take your calls and texts if you have any questions for the doctor, 844-967-2789. How are you, friend?
I have really missed spending this time with you.
I know. It was weird, right?
Yeah.
It was only 2 weeks, but it was like, there's so many things to talk about.
A lot of stuff happened in the last couple of weeks, like really important stuff. And I mean, this is kind of like Kristen Bry's personal pregnancy continuum.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. It's like I get to have 2 doctors, my actual doctor, and then I get to talk to you every week to be like, hey, did what she say do you agree with that? My second opinion just built in.
Well, and the stuff, the thing that we're highlighting today is a huge change in the way that we will be able to take care of women with postpartum depression. 1 in 7 women in this country will deal with perinatal depression, whether it's during the pregnancy or after the pregnancy.
Yeah.
1 in 7, that's not a small number. And we don't have a lot of tools for dealing with postpartum depression. We've got talk therapy, but have you tried to get therapy in this world right now with our healthcare system the way that it is? It's nearly impossible. And it's certainly difficult to get it in any sort of a rapid way when you need it right now. And that's what we need for our moms. So that's been a struggle. But also the medications that we've used traditionally don't work right away. They take weeks to months to start working.
Really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
That's just
how most depression drugs, right?
It's really
it's more about the drug. It's not because you just had a baby and there's something different with your body of absorbing the drugs.
Mm-hmm. It's about the drugs themselves. We use a lot of the same medications that we use for people who aren't pregnant, but we know that they're safe in pregnancy. So I use a lot of sertraline or Zoloft. That's probably my go-to. But it takes at least a couple of weeks before you see, what the steady state is going to look like. And then you're really looking at 4 to 6 weeks before you have your full therapeutic efficacy. I can't say my words today. I'm a little tired from the Springsteen.
I was going to say she went to Bruce Springsteen last night.
Was it like a 9-hour concert?
Oh my God, it was 3.5 hours.
Wow.
And he's 74 and his audience was getting tired and he's still up there just doing his thing.
Doing his thing.
Talk about living a healthy life, man.
Oh man. So, and that's what so the little research I've started to do and look into postpartum depression is like the best theories as to why this happens is because there's such a drop in hormones after you have the baby, right?
That's one thing.
Okay.
Definitely. And baby blues is different than postpartum depression.
And how do you tell the difference?
It's tricky.
Yeah.
Well, think of all the things that happen. Let me foreshadow for you.
Yes. Mother of 4, please tell me what I have to look forward to in 7 weeks.
So you will go home and hopefully you will take your baby with you. Yes. Hopefully. But many people don't get to do that.
Yeah.
And that factors into postpartum depression. So hopefully you get to take your baby with you. And then your baby needs to be fed every 2 to 3 hours, needs to be cuddled, diapered. Your house has not changed. You still need to do all of those things. You still need to cook and eat and take care of all of the other things in your life and your relationship. It's exhausting. Your whole schedule is turned on its head. It just really disrupts your life.
Yeah.
And that in itself can cause baby blues, where you're really just trying to find that new pace. Not necessarily that, but like, how do I take care of this human who relies entirely on me? And, for first-time moms, I think especially because you don't have any experience, but even for moms with subsequent kids, because every kid is different. So this kid might be easily soothed and that kid might need you to hold them all the time. It can be really challenging. So for the first, 1 to 2 weeks with all of the changes that happen in the postpartum period, baby blues is not unusual. If it lasts longer than 2 weeks, or if it's severe, if it's debilitating, if you can't do the things that you need to do to be able to function in your life, then you probably should seek help. Call your doctor.
Well, and also like ideations of hurting yourself,
Oh, for
like
sure.
things like that, it's like, that's a pretty obvious sign.
Postpartum depression is, I can't say the number one reason, but it is an entirely preventable cause of death. We know that 2/3 of women who die associated with their pregnancies in this country die in the postpartum period. They die after the baby comes out. 90% of those deaths are preventable, and many of them are related to postpartum depression. So now that we've got this new medication.
So I saw this headline, I think last week, and I saved it because I knew I wanted to talk about it with you. But basically the FDA approved the first treatment for postpartum depression. It says on Friday. I think that was either last Friday or maybe even the Friday before. So what should we know about this?
It has a hard name. Zurzuvae.
Yeah, that sounds right. Zurzuvae.
Zuranolone. Zurzuvae, something like that.
How do they come up with these names? I think I've said this joke before. It's like, who do you think has a more interesting job? The people who could come up with prescription drug names or lipstick names?
Or paint swatches.
Nail polish.
See?
Another good
A
one.
lot of naming jobs out there for the creative, verbose folks.
Yeah, Zurzuvae.
Okay.
The thing about Zurzuvae that's different is you take it once a day at night and it works right away. Right away. So you don't have to kind of grin and bear it and try to get through those first couple of weeks to see if it's going to make a difference. It works right away. You take it for up to 2 weeks. The efficacy it lasts for about 4 weeks total. And hopefully that gets you over the hump, or at least gets you to the point where you can get into talk therapy or try a different kind of therapy to help continue your treatment if your postpartum depression continues.
So it is categorized as an antidepressant. And so then that's the thing that I think is interesting is, like I said, when I think about depression, I think about chemical imbalances. And when I think about postpartum, I think about hormonal imbalances.
Yeah.
But does that really matter? I mean, is it all of it? So it's like, that's why formerly antidepressants before this one, that it was just slower, would still work. They just took a long time. And is this still like, is Zurzuvae still, is it approaching it as a hormonal imbalance or a chemical imbalance or both, or does it matter?
So like we were talking about before, postpartum depression can be related to so many different things.
Yeah.
It can be all of those things that cause the baby blues, but it can also be related to pre-existing depression. If you had depression before pregnancy, you're at a higher risk of having it during the pregnancy and in the postpartum period. So one opportunity is to treat it beforehand, to be ready for it.
Okay.
So if it does actually happen, you already have started your medication. You already are plugged in with therapy, so you don't have that big delay. A lot of this has to do with, making proper plans and treating you like an individual, recognizing what those opportunities are. And one of those opportunities are the socioeconomic and lifestyle things that are happening in your life. How many people don't have a long enough maternity leave? They don't have a work schedule that's flexible. They don't have
I have a partner
childcare.
who has we were just talking to a couple over the weekend where he had to go back to work immediately.
Yeah.
And so she was just on her own at home. I mean, luckily she didn't. So she had maternity leave, but he's like, I didn't get any time off of work.
Yeah.
And like, we're really lucky that like Mike will be able to, but Mike will clean the house. It's he already does that most of the time anyways. So.
But clean the house is one thing, but like sleep.
Yeah.
They say sleep when the baby sleeps. Well, you're never sleeping well. You're sleeping in 2 or 3 hour increments around the clock. I remember going months without a substantial night of sleep. It's not. I'm looking at your face right now.
As I've been like, it's hitting the point where it's like, I'm just tired all the time. I was like, oh, but this is just going to be my life. Like, I don't know the next time I'm going to feel well rested.
Well, and I think about too, just trying to take a shower when you have an infant, and you're going to get a 3-minute shower because you're not going to want to linger in there while the baby is sleeping. At least I would be freaking out.
Yeah, I remember putting my baby in a bouncy seat and bringing him in
the shower,
the bathroom,
in the bathroom, sitting next to me so that I could hear him. You're always paying attention. So all of those things, if you don't have the support, if we don't have the institutional support, which we don't.
Yeah.
All of those things can make a difference. So we have to address this on a number of different levels. This is not a magic bullet. If you've got other factors that are contributing to why you have postpartum depression, those things need to be solved as well. But to your point about hormonal imbalances, yes, that is what this medication does. It helps to modulate a hormonal imbalance and hopefully get you over that 2-week hump so that when your hormones are starting to stabilize again, then you'll be better.
So is this something I could ask my doctor about, like next time I see her? Like it's FDA approved, it's available?
I don't
You
know
don't know yet?
whether it's actually out there yet. Sometimes it got fast tracked through the FDA. So it's always hard to know whether it's going to be available here in our pharmacies or not. Like that whole supply chain thing is kind of confusing to me. I'm
There's
a
still
doctor,
an
not
Adderall
a
shortage?
pharmacist.
I haven't known because I haven't had to take that. But
And it's called Zurzuvae.
Zurzuvae?
Zurzuvae. It sounds like a musical instrument,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
Yeah.
I play the Zurzuvae.
This is Public Cervix Announcement with Dr. Kristen Lyerly. We have to go to a break, but 2 different things I want to touch on. One we'll do quickly, and then one we'll get into a little bit more when we come back from the break. Things that I'm getting advertised, things are being advertised to me, and whether or not, if you can debunk whether it's worth buying or not. But then also, I want to talk about this new headline with Wegovy, because I feel like this is a drug, between this and Ozempic and other drugs like it, every week it feels like there's some kind of headline about it. And so getting your thoughts on, like, for people who've heard about it, as things continue to roll in, when is a good time to finally pull the trigger versus wait and see? So both those questions. And if you have any questions, 844-967-2789. If you have any questions for Dr. Lyerly, 844-96-PARTY. You can text them in, you can call them in, or if you're listening to this later as a podcast on asgoeswisconsin.com/listen or wherever you find podcasts, you can shoot us an email at asgoeswisconsin@civicmedia.us, and we will talk about it next week.
Yes.
Because we have a while. You're here until I'm gone, basically. So
maybe
I won't
longer.
have to miss you again.
We'll see. No.
All right, we'll be right back after the break. This is As Goes Wisconsin. Well, welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I'm Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair, and it is that time of the week for a public service announcement with Dr. Kristen Lyerly, who is in the studio, and we're just chit-chatting away. I wish it was the end of the show today so we could just keep talking after the show was over, but we're going to have to let you go after the end of this segment, unfortunately, but she'll be back next week. And as always, if you have any questions for Dr. Lyerly, 844-967-2789, or you can email them in at asgoeswisconsin@civicmedia.us. So the first thing in this last segment that I want to get to just quickly, and then we'll go on to Wegovy. I started getting, because,
I know.
You get a lot of ads. When the algorithm figures out that you're pregnant, you get a lot of things targeted towards you.
You need this.
Clothes and baby stuff and all the different things that you're like, oh, I do need that.
This is not a small topic, though. Don't think that this is going to be like a little tiny topic. This is going to be a bigger topic.
All right. So and we may have to, you're saying that we may have to bookshelf or table Wegovy. If we can't get there?
I think it'll be a small topic.
All right. So I saw this ad yesterday, and it's from It's Bodily, and it's called Lactation Latte. And, this is like stuff that I feel like I used to for like cleanses and stuff, like, like this, this green juice or whatever. And it's like packaged, it's beautifully packaged. I know the company itself also sells like postpartum maternity wear and nursing bras and stuff. So it is a company that's makes products for new moms. But it was funny because I was like, all right, is this? Because of course I was like, ooh, I need that.
Of course
and
you
I was
do.
like, hold up, before I add that to my cart, let me ask Dr. Lyerly tomorrow of like, are there certain things that you should be taking, supplements and the like, that help with lactation as a new mom?
You should be drinking lots of water.
Okay. How about chewing ice? I've been doing a lot of that lately.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting. Have you had your iron checked recently?
I've recently found out that I'm also mildly anemic. So yes,
Might be
that's probably why I'm chewing ice all the time. Okay, good to know. Get that iron supplement.
And she has an ice preference too, Dr. Lyerly.
Oh, Quick Trip ice is the best.
Really?
By far.
Do they make a Skittle flavored ice?
You know me so well.
I mean,
anyway, so lots of hydration. But so the things that they're saying are in this stuff contains coconut milk, oat milk, something I can't pronounce, goat's roux. Like it's a supplement, right? There's a lot of stuff in there. And like, is this something that is just marketing and trying to get you to buy something? Or is there stuff that like in there, they're like, oh, that'd be really healthy and that'd be helpful?
Well, breastfeeding is not as easy as you would think. So, a lot of people go into the postpartum period thinking, well, I have breasts and I have a baby, so I'm good to go.
And people have done this for thousands of years.
Right. It's not that easy. For some people, it really is that easy. For other people, there are a lot of barriers. Maybe they've had breast surgery in the past, and that can certainly cause problems with breastfeeding. Maybe they have a baby who went to the NICU and didn't get to come home with them, so they've had to pump initially, and that can be really challenging. There are a lot of obstacles that you can encounter. So I would say, other than just drinking water, which you need to drink lots of extra water because you're putting out lots of extra water, work with a lactation consultant. If you are having issues with breastfeeding, that's the number one thing that needs to happen. There are medications that we can use. It's not unusual for us to prescribe metoclopramide or Reglan. Domperidone is another one that we've traditionally used in the medical community. Fenugreek is
a lot of words I can't pronounce.
Fenugreek is a common herbal remedy, and there are lots of herbs and supplements and things that may or may not work, just like the whole supplement industry.
Yeah.
Do they work? Do they not? We don't know. They haven't really been studied. Like, they haven't been rigorously studied. They're not rigorously controlled. So the supplement that you could buy 2 different bottles next to each other in the pharmacy, and they might have different ingredients. So it's really hard to know what's in these supplements. And I think the thing about this that bothers me the most is that it is marketing.
It's totally marketing.
And what's the calorie content? Because a lot of people in the postpartum period are trying to be healthy. They're trying to lose weight to get back down to their normal pregnancy weight. And you do need extra calories, 400 extra calories a day if you're breastfeeding. But a lot of people struggle to lose weight because they're so out of their schedule. They don't have that regular mealtime that they had before. There's no time to get to the grocery store for produce and the things that you feel like you need to be eating. So it bothers me when, there's probably nothing wrong with this.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, I don't know that this is any sort of a magical thing that's going to make breastfeeding amazing for you.
I will save my money then. There's plenty of other stuff I feel like I need to go buy.
Water.
Lots of water.
Yeah.
But it was funny because someone commented on the ad saying basically what you said. It's like, you just need like water in this. And then the brand itself responded to that comment saying, well, we have to have studies and this and this and this and all these things. It's like, of course they have to. But that's why I thought it was interesting to talk to you as far as like, what are the things that have been proved? Because there's, as we do every segment, right? There's constantly new studies showing this is helpful, this is not helpful, this is empty calories or whatever. And so, it was interested to get your take on this targeted ad that I received yesterday.
Yes, but look at what the studies are for. They're for the things that make money. Nobody's doing a study on fenugreek.
What is fenugreek?
It's just a thing that people have used forever. I think it's a derivative of fennel, maybe. It's got that really anisey kind of smell to it. Some people can't tolerate it at all because it's got a very strong flavor. But, some people love it. They think it works really well for them. I don't know. Nobody's doing a study on cabbage leaves for breast pain with breastfeeding, but cabbage leaves have been used forever. And I have patients who really love that as an option. So,
do you eat them or do you put them on your breast?
You put them on your breast.
Okay, good to know. It's probably cheaper than the silverette things that I registered for.
And it has to be cabbage, not kale.
Well, cabbage has that nice breast shape to it.
It's the head.
Yeah, kale is so leafy and
very
straight.
leafy.
It's a green thing.
It's a green thing.
All right, well, we'll have to talk about Wegovy next week because this flew by. But Dr. Kristen Lyerly, always so fun to have you.
It always flows by too fast.
Always. All right, when we come back, Wisconsin's beer baron Chris Drosner will be here to talk about the great taste of the Midwest. Stick around. This is As Goes Wisconsin.
year? Flamin' hot Cheetos, chicken on a stick, deep fried old-fashioned, or Pinot pretzel popper brat? The answer's coming up. The Wisconsin State Fair didn't start in its current home of West Allis. The first was in Janesville along the Rock River, then moved to different locations the next 40 years. The original cream puff has been around almost as long. Close to 400,000 are gobbled up every year. So which food was number one last year? It was the Pinot pretzel popper brat. It came out on top. The State Fair is a true slice of Wisconsin, and it runs through August 13th. I'm Terry Barr for the Civic Media Radio Network. It's easy to listen to your favorite local radio station anytime. Download the Civic Media app from the Apple or Google Play.
Well, I ain't gonna work today. Just wanna sit around and play. Gonna hit balls off the dock. Kick back in my flip-flop.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Matnair. And has it been only a month, or did we skip a month?
I think he's having a hard time hearing us.
Oh.
I am not sure what
was. Chris, you are muted. Can you hear us? Now you can hear us? We cannot hear you. You're muted, so we have to wait for a second. But as he's unmuting himself, once a month, we talk to Chris Drosner, Wisconsin's beer baron, about what's going on in beer news in Wisconsin. Are we good to go?
User error. The most basic user error is that we haven't been doing this for 3 years. Sorry about that.
No problem. How are you doing, friend?
I'm doing great. How are you?
We're good. We're good. We're,
I mean, doing great is actually kind of underselling it a little bit, because this is like, on Saturday is beer Christmas for people who are into this kind of thing. It is.
Have they trademarked that yet? Oh,
they haven't, but they don't need to. It's of the people.
Okay, so and of course we're talking about the great taste of the Midwest, which you have exactly said. It is like beer Christmas, and it is I've never been, so but you're saying this is the best beer festival in the country. I think we're having a little bit of a hard time with your Wi-Fi, Chris.
I mean, it's not the biggest, but it's.
We may need you to call in, which might be a better
option.
A better option, just because I think there's a little bit of a delay.
And our connection is a little glitchy.
Or maybe we can just turn your video off. Sometimes that helps as well.
Yeah, I'll try that. This is the biggest festival in the. It's not the biggest festival in the country, but it's definitely one of the. It's the best. It's the best because it's in Madison on the second Saturday in August, and it's in beautiful Lakeside Olin Park with hundreds of brewers from around the Midwest, and it just has everything that you want out of a beer festival, and none of the junk.
What's the junk? I mean, what would you consider the junk at other festivals?
What really sets this one apart is not the size. I mean, it is huge. There's 200 brewers and 14. They're expecting like 1,300 to 1,500 different beers being poured at this festival.
Wow.
Right? So that's like huge, but it's really about like the access to the brewers. This is a beer geeks festival, and so you all these breweries that come, they bring their staff. You can talk to the person that made this oyster goza, a really esoteric style with, and why did you put oysters in it? Well, you can ask the guy who made it, or the gal who made it, who's sitting, who's pouring this beer for you. So that's really what makes this extraordinary. And really the Madison Homebrewers and Tasters Guild, the volunteer organization that puts it on, does an exceptional job taking care of the brewers. That's why, like, brewery people are sick of beer festivals at this point. Well,
we've talked about this before. I feel like either in July or in June, you were kind of saying like there's been a plateau of the enthusiasm for beer festivals. And I know Brewfest in Milwaukee was just 2 weekends ago. And so you were saying that as far as like, it's just not as
hip.
I don't know, popular or as much of a driver of ticket sales and stuff.
Yeah,
But you're saying
I
this
think,
one's still a standard.
yeah, I think there's some fatigue on the consumer side of things, but there's definitely, the brewers are definitely sick of it. You know, for so many years it was like, well, we're getting our name out there, we're having new people try our products, and it was kind of a marketing thing. And that's not, I mean, we're done with that at this point. Everybody knows what craft beer is about. They know kind of whether they like it or not. They probably know what they're into or not. But this is just different because for the brewers, the Great Taste takes care of them. They handle all the kegs, because I mean, you've got brewers coming from Kansas, you've got them coming from Ohio, you've got them coming from the Dakotas and Nebraska, all over the Midwest coming. And so it's a big deal. You got to get hotel rooms for all your staff, but they make it easy, and it becomes like this kind of combination of a family reunion and an industry convention for these people who get, a lot of them come together. And you've got brewers who used to work at another brewery who might see their former coworkers, or there's just a huge social aspect to it. And beer is really good at bringing people together anyway. So when you kind of combine that with a great setting and a festival that makes it really easy for the brewers to kind of do their thing, that experience translates to the consumer experience, because I go and I'm one of 10,000 people in this park, and everybody is happy to be there instead of just the people on my side of the table.
That's interesting. So that was going to be one of my questions. So it's 10,000 people. It's
between guests, the guild's volunteers, and the brewer's staff. It's 10,000 people, and almost all of those, like with the volunteers and the brewer's staff, they are going to be mingling and sampling beers as well. The way the volunteer shifts work is you're typically on for like maybe half the festival. It's a 5-hour festival, so you might be on for the first 3 hours or 4 hours, and then you have a few hours to walk around and sample. So everybody kind of is and of course the brewers staff, they want to get around and check out other breweries too. They're very much in the same boat as we are. So yeah, it's the setting, you just can't beat it. I mean,
Olin Park is pretty great.
It's on this hill above Lake Monona. You could see downtown and Monona Terrace off in the distance. It's just, everybody's happy to be there, and of course a little bit of alcohol goes a long way too. So
is there any new Wisconsin beers or breweries there that you're looking forward to, or I guess what is going to be new or different this year that you are excited about from a journalistic perspective?
Yeah, well, every year they have 30 new breweries every year. So and they kind of rotate. They have a system for getting this long waiting list of brewers that want to get in to the festival, in there. And the program, they have a printed program, and they put out a digital version of it on Monday, and it lists all the beers that are not all the beers, but almost all the beers that are going to be available, like more than 1,000 beers. So last night I started going through it, and it's insane. Like there's all these esoteric styles and like weird ingredients and like historical beers. Like Giant Jones from Madison has a beer that was based on a from like 17th century Antwerp in Belgium. Like I have no idea what that's going to be like. So, and that's super representative of what you're going to find there. There's every combination of pastry stout you can imagine.
What was that? Pastry stout?
Pastry stout. You don't know what pastry stout is?
I mean, I can deduce what it is. Is it
it's a
stout that's like your
my maple bacon
scones?
Yeah, basically, it's a imperial stout that is super sweet and usually has like vanilla and maybe cocoa nibs or cinnamon or stuff that kind of makes it a profile, like a dessert like profile. Yeah.
Okay.
And there's going to be probably about 150 to 200 of those.
So here's my
all
question.
North of 10% ABV. Yeah.
As like how for you, I mean, obviously you probably, everyone has their own approach, but I'm thinking about this because I'm going to the state fair today. Like this is my day to go. And I'm obviously, we've been joking about all the different kinds of food, and you have to pick, because one, it's expensive to get everything, and two, you can only eat so much. And so when you approach a beer festival that has over 1,000 types of beer, how does one approach that? I mean, I assume to a certain extent it has to be almost like wine tasting where there's like a spit cup because you can't actually drink that much without getting hammered and still appreciate all the different kinds of beer you're getting. But like, no one's actually going to try 1,000 different types of beer in a weekend, are they?
No, it's just one day too, so it's not.
Oh
not like
yeah,
you can-
so like, what
yeah.
is what are the different strategies people can take of like how to approach this to get the most out of it?
I have heard of people who bring spreadsheets to the. I mean, first of all, the program is in an app, so you can kind of like, create your path through the various tents and say, I'm definitely going to go to this booth and this booth and this booth. And a lot of people do that. I mean, I have done that, been really organized and making sure that I'm not going to miss certain beers. And I most of my tips these days are about not getting too drunk. And so drinking a lot of water, rinsing between, you rinse your glass between, drink that water. But also just be chill. Just be chill. Go with the flow. Just be chill,
dude.
And don't overdo it.
It's not a competition.
Yeah, and one of my rules is that I will not wait in line.
Okay.
Well, not a. Some of the more popular breweries tend to have longer lines, and there's so many great brewers and beers at this festival that it just doesn't make sense to me to get the best one, right? Air quotes work great on radio, but that's really a key for me, is to not worry about missing out on anything, because you're going to stumble into some great beer. And the idea of tasting like a great Kolsch from a brewery in Indiana that you're never going to make it to, I mean, that's really what it's about. And really like being with your friends and hanging out and, like having little sips from their glasses and, having, and when you do run into a bad beer, there's going to be a bad beer, when you're talking about all this weird stuff like pickle beers and mustard beers and whatever, there's going to be something that you don't like. Dump it on the ground, and don't do it like right in front of don't do it right in front of the brewer, but take a sip, don't make a face, walk away, thank them, and then as soon as you get out of eyesight, yep, that's going on the grass. A lot of and sometimes like toward the end of the festival, you're supposed to be pouring 2 2-ounce pours, but by the end of the festival they want to get rid of the beer, so those glasses start getting pretty full, and that is not the time to start drinking full beers. So yeah, you gotta.
Chris, don't they must sell food, I hope, to soak up all this beer.
All kinds of food, yeah, all kinds of food vendors. There are presentations where they do chocolate and cheese pairings with beers. They have all kinds of other vendors. It's a whole little village out in Owen Park, all built around just celebrating awesome beer. Honestly, it's one of the days of the year that I look forward to the most every year.
I would say you can hear the like excitement in your voice. It's like palpable.
Absolutely.
Like, I just can't even describe it. I'm so excited for this weekend.
And imagine that times 10,000. Really, I mean, it's so cool. It's so cool.
So then beyond that, as I said, I'm going to the State Fair today. Is there any beer associated news when it comes to State Fair, or is it all just food?
I mean, the beer at the State Fair has come a long way in the last, decade or so. They do have a couple of craft, kind of micro, I think they're called the micro, those bars, big one in the center. And then they've got a couple, I think, other ones scattered around. And yeah, you can get some decent beers. They have a program where if you get the last, if you kick the keg, if you get the last beer poured out of a keg, you get like a free T-shirt or something, which is an interesting way to encourage consumption, I guess. I don't know.
I mean, do we need to encourage consumption at the State Fair?
This is Wisconsin, right? I think we're good.
I would say my biggest, 2 years ago, my best beer story from the State Fair was I went to the Guinness tent and they had the machine where they can print your picture onto your Guinness, onto the foam. That was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
That was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That is cool. Yeah, I went on Monday, and I regret to inform everybody that I only had one beer, but it was a good one. I found a stand that had a Lakefront Hazy Rabbit IPA, so that was.
Well, there you go. All right, quickly, we only have
solid.
30 seconds left. What food should I get tonight after your experience on Monday?
Oh, you got to get like the okay.
You only got 30 seconds.
I didn't go off crazy, but you got to get a cream puff and a grilled cheese.
Okay,
Cream puff. That's the.
All right. Thanks so much. We'll see you next month, Chris. Chris Drosner is the executive editor for Milwaukee Magazine and writes the Wisconsin Beer Baron art column for Wisconsin State Journal. We'll see you next month, buddy. We got to go to break. We'll be right back.
Beers and sunshine, bonfires and summertime, time. Ooh.
I've got some cheese curds that I'm willing to share. And I want to ride that giant slide over there. So if you've got 11 days to spare, won't you come with me to the Wisconsin State Fair? Won't you come with me to the Wisconsin? Great state of Wisconsin.
There's something for everyone at the Wisconsin State Fair, presented by U.S. Cellular August 3rd through the 13th.
A perfect day starts with perfect breakfast. Start your day with Brunch It Up. Our experts are serving up the ultimate brunch experience. Our menu is loaded with inventive dishes from chicken and waffles to cinnamon roll pancakes. Try unique cocktails like Brunch Bloody Mary with house-infused vodka. Come brunch it up over bottomless mimosas or a midday pick-me-up. Or with the whole family for an unforgettable Sunday brunch. Brunch It Up in Milwaukee, Brookfield, or Cedarburg from 7 to 3 on weekdays and 8 to 3 on weekends. Let's brunch it up.
AM radio provides always-on news, sports, talk, traffic, and weather reports. It also delivers vital emergency information when your community needs it most. A new bill in Congress would ensure AM radio stays in your car, because when cell and internet services are down, this free emergency service is critical. Text AM to 52886 and tell Congress to support the AM Radio for Every Vehicle Act.
Message and data rates may apply. You may receive up to 4 messages a month, and you may text STOP to stop.
This message furnished by the National Association of Broadcasters.
Here's your updated forecast on the Shaw. Daytime highs approaching 82 this afternoon under mainly sunny skies. Winds out of the northwest, 8 to 15 miles an hour. Lows dip down to about 63 tonight. Mainly cloudy skies expected. Cloudy skies with a few peaks of sun again tomorrow. Chance for scattered thunderstorms. Daytime highs approaching 82. For Civic Media, I'm meteorologist Derek Height. Currently, it's 75.
Our state fair is a great state fair. Don't miss it, don't even be late. It's scholars with donuts at our state fair. It's the best state fair in our state.
Our state fair is a great state fair.
Welcome back to As Goes Wisconsin. I am Kristen Bry. She is Jane Madnair. And yes, I am. This is the only day that we can make it to the state fair. So Mike and I are going this evening.
All right.
Seems like the weather's behaving, which is great. You went over the weekend, correct?
We went, Paul, my husband and I went on Sunday.
So in this last segment, if you have any suggestions, either you've won any of our listeners who maybe won tickets, if you want to tell us what you ate and you liked, or in general, anyone who's gone so far this year, if you have a food or drink recommendation of something I should definitely try tonight, text it in, call it in, 844-967-2789, and we'll take your recommendations and I will write them down, because I feel like I'm going to give myself 5 things.
That's a lot.
Well, Michael will share it with me.
That's true. You can split.
But I feel like I need to make some content for the TikToks and the whatever as far as our experiences there for the evening. So I was like, all right, I feel like if I do the top 5 things and then I rank those,
you should be good.
Then I should be good. So I feel like I have to. I was going through what the Sporky finalists were. And so the beer cheese Wisconsin lava cake from Worst Bar won. I think that was what Richard from Sussex said that he would eat every day for the rest of his life.
I believe you're right.
Our first winner. Then the Porky from Camp Bar, which is like an ice cream, very decadent looking thing, Deep fried apple pie from Saz's. Kind of sounds pretty good, actually.
That does sound pretty tasty.
So those were the top 3 for the foods. And then the drinkies, the Ferris Mule from Old Fashioned Sipper Club is what won there. And so, but some of the other things, the dill pickle donut was one of the finalists. The Irish Dipper. What is that? Yeah, I don't know. So if you have any suggestions, we would love to hear from you as far as what should I eat tonight, or what would baby like most? Maybe that's the other video I can make as far as what agreed with me and what agreed with the baby the most, because she certainly lets me know when I don't know if she's angry, but there's movement after certain foods versus other foods.
Leaving little editorial comments for you.
Yeah, exactly. And so go ahead.
844-967-2789 if you want to call in or text over the next couple of minutes talking about what Kristen and baby should try tonight at the State Fair. Our friend Greg from Waukesha. Hi, Greg. How you doing?
Hello. So every year, besides this year, I usually go to the State Fair, and the Wisconsin Products Pavilion always has great food, including when I could eat them. I'm gluten-free now, but the grilled cheese sandwiches, they're like $2 or $3. They're like the best deal. They may be more now, but they're the best deal on the fair. And just, Kristen, as a real quick bonus, Ben Janzow is playing at the State Fair every day, and so is Caitlin Pico. And so support those.
Okay.
Local,
do you know what stage they're at?
I should have had that.
I will look it up. Or if you look it up, if you want to text it in, I'll keep an eye on the text line so I can go make sure that I stop by and support them this afternoon. Because I was wondering, I was going to look at see what acts are up today to make sure. Because I think we're just going to walk around. You're certainly going to go down the slide.
Oh, you're gonna do the slide.
Why wouldn't I do the slide?
It's a lot of steps.
Oh,
you got to walk up there.
I didn't think about that.
There's no escalator.
Thanks for the call, Greg.
Now that I've ruined your big slide dreams.
Yeah, and I don't think since Mike's getting back surgery in a week, so I'm pretty sure he's not going to carry me up those stairs.
That seems unlikely.
So I'm trying to think of the other stuff because we're definitely not going to do the other rides. This is not a year that I feel like the other fair rides was what I'm looking for.
Were you a big fair rider?
When I was a kid, and I think 2 years ago, because last year we didn't go because COVID was starting to spike again. And as I've said, I was like, there's nothing that I need to eat at the State Fair that, considering in a week I'm wearing a 2-piece wedding gown.
True.
And so I missed it last year. And so I haven't gone in 2 years. And then 2 years ago, we did a lot of the rides and it was fun. I don't even know if I'll fit in all the rides right now.
Well, the last thing you want to be doing is getting tossed around all over the place.
Yeah.
At 7.5 months.
No,
So
yeah.
probably not.
So I'm trying to think of the other stuff that we might do. The Ferris wheel, TBD on the slide. Now that you mentioned how many stairs there are, I certainly want to see a lot of the animals. What else did you guys do when you were there?
We did watch. We went to I think it's called the Canine Pavilion. So we went and watched dock diving.
Nice.
And he also had trained his dog to retrieve things from behind. Where you hide them around the arena. I could sit in there all day and just watch them do
the
things
dogs.
and watch them do things
What's
with dogs.
What's the predominant breed that's doing? Is it mostly collies? Is it a lot of retrievers?
It's a lot of retrievers.
Okay.
And a lot of labs, I would say, because they're such water. They're so water happy.
Yeah. Yeah. We recently tested Cliff's appetite for water.
And how did he do?
There is none. There is no appetite. There is no appetite for water. When we went camping, we brought him with, and we tried to get him to go into the lake pond. And he, as a Chihuahua, he was like, absolutely not.
Are you kidding
I want
me?
nothing to do with this.
And then, of course, I always like to go through the expo center to see some of the people who sell the magical whatever, the magical mop, the magical this, the magical iron. That is a stage show in and of itself.
Yeah.
For some of those hawkers, you know what I mean? It's a bit. It's a skit.
Absolutely.
And some of them are really good.
Sales, baby.
Yeah.
Sell ice to an Eskimo.
Exactly.
Well, yeah. So, and then just in other news, obviously our state fair is coming to an end this weekend, but the Iowa State Fair is just getting started. And so I'm excited to see today is the Iowa State Fair's first day of their 11-day fair. And it's, one of America's oldest and biggest agricultural and industrial expositions in the country. And it is also where all those presidential hopefuls are there glad handing. So I'm sure next week we're going to be able to see some of the, did Ron DeSantis put his foot in his mouth?
Completely face plant when someone said hello to him.
What was there? There was one, I think he was at a different fair recently where he looked at a kid and some kid was eating some treat. He goes, is that good? A lot of sugar in there, huh? He is so awkward.
He is so socially strange.
And so I feel like basically all the candidates are going to do their rounds at the Iowa State Fair ahead of obviously the caucus. And then they're going to get on a plane. Well, at least 8 of them will get on a plane and come here for the debate on the 23rd.
The 23rd.
And so looking out for any fun bits that we can do based off of the antics at the Iowa State Fair.
We'll have all those corn dog pictures to work with.
Love that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you to Dr. Kristen Lyerly. Thank you to Chris Drosner for being our guest today. Thank you to everyone who called and texted. We'll be back tomorrow. Luke Mathers will be here. And we'll have a good Friday show. Thanks for listening. This is As Goes Wisconsin.